Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're really embarking on a journey into the heart of the unsettling and, well, the truly inexplicable.
Exactly.
We're not just, telling spooky stories here. We're actually examining real accounts. These are submitted by people who have encountered the uncanny, the terrifying, and sometimes the downright bizarre.
Things that just don't fit.
Right. You're going to hear about some chilling doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Those really eerie, impossible duplicates of people you know.
Yeah.
We'll also delve into encounters with strange, sort of cryptid-like creatures that defy easy classification. And even objects. Objects that seem to possess a disturbing will of their own. Every single one of these accounts is tied to a personal experience that it utterly defies any easy explanation.
And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to try and unpack these gripping narratives. We're going to meticulously sift through the details, look for patterns, consider the profound impact these encounters had on the people who live them, and ultimately try to understand what these accounts might tell us about the very boundaries of our known reality. What are these real-world experiences revealing?
Okay, let's unpack this then. Because like you said, these aren't just spooky tales for around a campfire.
Yeah.
These are moments that truly rattled people, right to the core of their understanding of what's real and what's even possible.
Shook their foundations.
Exactly. So we're going to begin by delving into some of the most, I think, unnerving accounts. The ones where familiar figures or objects suddenly take on this sinister, otherworldly twist. And maybe the best place to start is with a really chilling doppelganger experience. This one was reported by a child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Happened in Midland, Texas, back in 1999. A 6-year-old child, home alone during a really severe thunderstorm at night, went into a dark garage to grab her backpack. Simple enough, right?
Yeah, sounds normal so far.
Well, she looked out the garage window and saw what appeared to be her father standing outside. He was dressed typically, even had his sunglasses on, which is weird, at night, and was holding his army bag, just like he normally would when coming home from his truck driving job.
Okay, sunglasses at night, that's the first off detail.
Exactly. And here's where it turns really sinister. This figure was completely emotionless.
Yeah.
Didn't speak, didn't smile, and it just aggressively pointed to the garage door opener button. Just pointing.
Like demanding entry.
Yeah. And the child felt this overwhelming sense of danger, like an ice-cold dread just washed over her. She actually heard an internal voice, clear as anything, she said, telling her not to open that door.
Wow, like an instinct kicking in hard.
Absolutely. And then the horror just ramps up dramatically. The figure's hand, it horrifyingly transformed into what the child described as claws.
Claws.
And it scratched the window, making this awful screeching sound like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh my God.
The child, understandably, fled screaming. Her mother rushed into the garage, but found no one there. Nothing. And here's a chilling confirmation. Her real father. He was 435 miles away in Houston at the time.
No way it could have been him.
No way. And the next morning, they found actual claw marks on the outside of the window.
Physical evidence.
Physical evidence. To this day, the witness still wonders why the sunglasses at night, why pick her, and what on earth would have happened if she had opened that garage door.
That's what's so fascinating and terrifying here is just the sheer audacity of this phenomena. Replicating a loved one, a figure of trust, but with those key details, like you said, the sunglasses, the lack of emotion, they're just off. It's deeply unsettling. And then to leave behind undeniable physical evidence like claw marks, it really blurs that line between what's perceived, what's psychological, and what's actually physically concrete.
That blurring of lines is exactly it. It's incredibly unsettling, isn't it? When you have a loved one replicated, but it's wrong, and then tangible proof like claw marks. How does that force someone, especially the person experiencing it, to reevaluate what they think is real? What's the big takeaway for you, for the listener, from that specific combination?
Well, it fundamentally challenges our understanding of identity and presence, doesn't it? We rely so heavily on recognizing faces, gestures, the familiar patterns of people we trust. What if something mimics that, but with this underlying predatory feel, it violates a very deep psychological safety net. You feel profoundly unsafe. And the physical evidence, that pushes it beyond just, a hallucination or a trick of the mind. It strongly suggests an external interacting entity, even if we can't possibly define its nature. So the takeaway, I think, is that our perceived reality might be far more porous than we generally like to imagine. Some phenomena can apparently cross that threshold and leave a very real, very tangible mark.
Yeah, porous is a good word for it. And it's not always just one single isolated incident like that, is it? Sometimes these doppelganger experiences seem to repeat or even connect to deeper personal events going on in someone's life.
That's right.
Consider this account from someone described as a grounded, no-nonsense programmer. Someone who relies on logic, on empirical data. He experienced a whole series of perplexing events during a period of really intense work stress and insomnia.
So high stress, lack of sleep, factors we often see.
Exactly. First, at work, his receptionist and another employee insisted they saw him arrive early one morning. He said they even chatted with him, except he was asleep at home. His fiancée, who was with him, completely corroborated his alibi. There's no way he was there.
Okay, that's weird. Multiple witnesses seeing him where he wasn't.
Very weird. Then, just a month later, his fiancée herself saw him enter his home office. But he was wearing different clothes than he was actually wearing at that exact moment elsewhere in the house.
She saw him too.
Yeah. She followed him into the office, and the room was empty.
Vanished. So it happened at home too.
Right. These incidents, as you might expect, led him, despite his logical, programmer brain, to start researching doppelgangers.
Can't blame him.
Not at all. And the whole thing culminated in something truly bizarre. A synchronous dream with his fiancée. He dreamt he had a brother who never had the chance to grow up. A really emotional, poignant dream for him.
Okay.
And his fiancée woke up at the exact same time, saying she dreamed that he told her he had a brother. And she added this detail. We were on a boat again. Which was a detail he didn't recall from his own dream.
Whoa, a shared dream with specific differing details.
Exactly. And it's really worth noting, these occurrences, this whole period, strikingly coincided with a relapse in alcoholism for him and a major career change, a time of huge upheaval.
Well, if we connect that to the bigger picture, it really suggests a profound interplay, doesn't it? Between extreme psychological stress, significant personal change, and these seemingly external manifestations. The synchronicity of the dream, especially, that points to something beyond mere coincidence. Maybe a shared unconsciousness tapping into something, or a reflection of deep internal turmoil somehow projecting outwardly, maybe between two people who are closely connected.
That profound interplay, it's so compelling. How do you think intense stress might sort of open a door to these kinds of manifestations, whether it's an external doppelganger or even a shared dream like that?
Well, stress and trauma, they can absolutely create a state of heightened sensitivity. It's like it almost thins the veil, if you will, between our normal conscious perception and other layers of reality or awareness. When someone's under immense pressure, their usual psychological defenses might be lowered. That can make them more susceptible, more open to phenomena that might otherwise just remain unseen or unnoticed.
Right, like the static clears a bit.
Exactly. And the dream synchronicity, that's particularly intriguing because it goes beyond just one person's experience. It implies a connection, right? A shared channel between their minds, somehow accessing similar symbolic information. It really hints at something like a collective unconscious maybe, or perhaps even a form of non-local consciousness. It certainly challenges the idea that our minds are entirely separate, isolated entities.
It really does. So we've seen how deeply personal and psychological these things can be, sometimes appearing as these twisted reflections of people we know. But what happens when the inexplicable isn't a shadow of ourselves, but something utterly alien? Something that just defies all our known biology and physics.
Exactly. And that brings us nicely to our next set of accounts. These are ones where the unsettling comes in the form of, well, cryptid-like entities, things that shouldn't exist, and even inanimate objects that seem to take on a disturbing will of their own.
Okay, let's talk about the cemetery crawler then. This is an experience reported by two high school friends in Rossville, Illinois. Happened sometime between 2007 and 2010. They saw this terrifying crawler creature in a cemetery at night.
Just the name is creepy.
Right. They described its appearance as humanoid, but it was moving on all fours, extremely pale, hairless, and impossibly thin. And it moved with this unnatural, really fast, animal-like gait. They said its feet came forward almost past its hands like some kind of disturbing spider walk.
Ugh, okay, that's a vivid image.
And this creature just circled them, staying just out of sight in the darkness while they were completely paralyzed with absolute fear. Couldn't move.
Terrifying.
Years later, remarkably, the witness was living in Colorado and met a new friend. This friend had seen the exact same creature.
No way, miles away, years later.
Miles away, years later. The friend saw it under a porch, hunched over something it was holding. This friend had a Navajo Apache background, and their first thought was maybe a skinwalker or Wendigo, from folklore. But they later doubted it said there were subtle differences.
Interesting connection to local legends, but still distinct.
Yeah, but here's maybe the most chilling part. Just discussing the sighting triggered intense, long-lasting nightmares for both the original witness and this new friend. And the nightmares matched in vivid detail.
Shared nightmares triggered by talking about it.
Shared nightmares. And these were accompanied by about 6 months of just bad luck and pervasive anxiety for both of them.
Wow. Like a lingering effect.
A serious lingering effect. And get this, there's further validation. Another podcast listener, completely unconnected to them, geographically distant, heard the original story being told. They contacted the show describing the same creature and experiencing the identical nightmares.
Okay, that's multiple independent corroborations. That's significant.
Highly significant. The original witness's current theory is that maybe it's some kind of interdimensional being, something that can interact physically with our world, but thankfully hasn't been reported to directly attack anyone.
This really raises a critical question, doesn't it? When you have multiple geographically separate individuals describing precisely the same highly specific and frankly bizarre entity, right down to the physiological effects like these identical nightmares and the subsequent bad luck, it demands a more robust explanation than just dismissing it as coincidence. It points strongly towards some kind of shared, visceral reality, or perhaps a consistent manifestation of something truly anomalous that operates outside our conventional understanding of, well, anything.
It does sound almost unbelievable, though. Multiple people miles apart describing the exact same bizarre creature and matching nightmares. For a listener who's naturally skeptical, how do we kind of move beyond coincidence here? Is there a known psychological phenomenon that could explain such shared, vivid experiences? Or does this truly push us into the realm of the properly anomalous?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And it's where the data, the sheer consistency of the reports becomes so compelling. I mean, while shared anxieties or maybe cultural influences can sometimes lead to similar types of reports, the extreme specificity of this crawler description, its weird gait, its paleness, its thinness across unrelated witnesses, is really difficult to just dismiss as folklore bleeding over, some kind of mass hysteria. And the shared nightmares, which seem to replicate the core experience itself, suggests a direct and profound impact, maybe energetic, maybe psychological, maybe both. It suggests a transfer of some kind. It really forces us to consider that these might not just be figments of imagination, but actual experiences with an objective external component, whatever that component is. This is where standard psychological theories often start to fall short, I think. And we begin leaning into explanations that involve, well, other dimensions or entities interacting with our physical world in ways we don't understand.
Right. And sometimes these unsettling encounters seem almost steeped in local legend, don't they? Taking on a life beyond just folklore, involving strange creatures and even inanimate objects.
Absolutely. Like they tap into something already present in the local consciousness.
Yeah. This next account is about the Plunkus of southern Maine. Sounds weird, I know. There were 4 friends spending a summer living in these old cabins on a heavily wooded property. Their very first encounter was just a large white blur that ran out in front of their car. Didn't think much of it initially.
Okay, a quick glimpse.
But then things started to get stranger pretty quickly. One friend developed really severe insomnia, which they initially blamed on bad tooth pain he was having. Later, 3 of them clearly heard great harmonies, like a choir singing, when only one person was actually playing guitar. Nobody else was singing.
Auditory phenomena. Okay.
Then they saw it. A giant white bobcat. Massive, they said, about the size of a German Shepherd, which is huge for a bobcat.
Way too big.
Way too big. But the truly weird part was its tail. It had this gross, nasty, fleshy tail, like a rat's disproportionately long and completely bald.
That doesn't sound like any known animal.
Not at all. And when one of them threw a rock near it, it didn't run off like you'd expect. It unnervingly stood up on its hind legs.
Stood up.
Stood up on its hind legs and just calmly walked into the woods.
Bipedal locomotion. Very strange.
Very strange. This was followed by one of the friends experiencing a night terror. Saw a giant white mass in the room and heard a distinct cougar snarl. So they started doing research, right? And they stumbled upon a local urban legend, the dingball cooter, also known apparently as the Plunkus.
The Plunkus.
The Plunkus. It was described in the legend as a cougar, but with a bare ball-shaped tail. Known for luring humans with singing.
Singing? Like the harmonies they heard.
Exactly. Luring humans with singing and supposedly cracking skulls with its tail. A strikingly similar description to what they experienced and saw.
Wow, the legend matched their experience quite closely.
Incredibly closely. Then the haunting, or whatever it was, intensified. They found this antique cheetah statue in the house they were renting. This statue started repeatedly moving itself. They'd put it somewhere, it would turn up somewhere else. Even after they hid it in a storage cabin away from the main house.
An object moving on its own.
Yeah. Once, they found it literally tucked under the blankets on a bed, like it was taking a nap.
Okay, that's deeply unsettling.
They got so freaked out, they eventually burned the statue, just destroyed it.
Can't blame them.
But even after the statue was gone, they still saw white blurs occasionally, heard rustling leaves when there was no wind, faint whispers of singing sometimes, and a Mother Mary statue someone had placed out in the woods was found turned completely backward one day.
So the activity continued even after burning the statue.
It did, though maybe less intensely. But here's the curious resolution. After they finally left the property at the end of the summer, the friend's chronic tooth pain completely disappeared.
Gone.
Gone. And the other friend who had the night terror never had another one again.
That is fascinating. It presents such a compelling case where you have local folklore, this bizarre physical manifestation, and direct personal impacts, the harmonies, the fear, the physical ailments, all converging. It really suggests the deeply rooted presence, something connected intrinsically to that land, maybe an energetic imprint, or even an entity tied to that specific location. And the fact that the physical ailments, like the tooth pain, just cleared up after leaving, that implies a direct energetic link, almost as if the environment itself was causing or at least exacerbating their physical symptoms.
That convergence is remarkable, isn't it? The folklore and the direct experience lining up. Do you think it's possible that the legend itself somehow, gives permission for these things to manifest? Or is it more likely that the land truly holds some kind of energy that attracts or even creates these phenomena?
That's a really profound question. It could very well be both, you know? Legends often arise from genuine anomalous experiences that get passed down, acting as a sort of historical record for strange events tied to a place. So the folklore might not cause the phenomenon, but rather describe a persistent presence or energy that's already there.
So the legend documents the weirdness.
Precisely. And the land itself, absolutely, it can hold energetic imprints, especially places with significant history, or in this case, old, possibly isolated cabins in the woods. There could be layers of history there. And the idea that physical ailments like chronic pain could be directly linked to these environmental energies and then just dissipate when that connection is broken, that really highlights how deeply intertwined our physical well-being might be with the unseen world around us. It could imply some kind of energetic draining or influence that ceases once the person removes themselves from that source.
Wow. Okay, finally, let's look at a truly terrifying and persistent encounter. This one involved a classic dark figure that profoundly challenged a young mind's whole perception of reality. We're talking about the Grim Reaper figure. This is the harrowing experience of an 8-year-old child, often home alone after school in their townhome.
8 years old. That's very young for this kind of thing.
Very young. He began seeing this dark figure, tall, about the height of a door frame, consistently appearing in the corner of his living room. He described it as resembling a textbook Grim Reaper, but without the scythe.
Okay.
Long, black, tattered robe, skeletal features visible within the hood, and this chillingly described long grin.
Just standing there.
Just standing there, silently. Now, the child was raised in a Christian home, and his parents didn't believe in ghosts. So for 3 months, he desperately tried to rationalize it, told himself it was just his imagination.
Trying to fit it into his worldview.
Exactly. The figure, always silent, would apparently lean its head slightly if the child looked directly at it, almost as if acknowledging him. A subtle but deeply unnerving gesture.
That's intensely creepy, like it knew he was watching.
Right. And it gradually became more aggressive over those 3 months. It started zipping. That's the word he used, like teleporting instantly to block the child from going upstairs to his room. It would appear at the top of the stairs, leaning over the staircase, just staring him right in the face.
Oh, that's terrifying. Directly confrontational.
The escalation peaked one day when it zipped directly in front of his face, maybe inches away, and it shrouded its hands over my face as if though it wanted to grab me.
Physically threatening him.
He screamed, absolutely terrified, and just fled the house, running outside into the snow without shoes or a coat.
Pure panic.
Pure panic.
Yeah.
And his parents' reaction when he told them, finally. It was startling. They didn't dismiss him. They looked really stern, he said, and then they revealed the God honest truth, as they put it.
What was the truth?
They told him that a previous resident's daughter, who they claimed was demon-possessed, had actually taken her own life in that house.
Oh my goodness.
And they said, now the demon wanted me. Eating the child.
Wow, what a thing to tell an 8-year-old.
Right. They immediately performed a protective ritual using baby oil to make crosses on all the doors and windows. After that ritual, the figure was seen just once more outside the kitchen window looking in, and then it vanished. Permanently. Never seen again.
What's really striking here is, first, the prolonged nature of the haunting. 3 months is a long time for a child to endure that. Then there's the clear psychological impact on a young child trying desperately to reconcile his family's beliefs with his terrifying direct experience. And finally, that chilling revelation from the parents. It suggests a deep, possibly tragic and very dark history attached to that specific space. It really raises that important question again about how our environment, our homes, can hold on to imprints of past events, especially traumatic ones, and how certain individuals, maybe particularly a vulnerable child, might become susceptible to them.
That revelation from the parents.
Yeah.
About the previous resident's daughter. That's such a chilling piece of history for that specific house. How do you view that idea of a space holding onto such tragic imprints? And is it truly possible that a protective ritual, like the one they did with the oil crosses, can genuinely clear a space? Or is it more about the power of belief providing psychological relief for the family, especially the child?
That's a really critical point, and it's something that comes up a lot in these kinds of cases. When we talk about spaces holding tragic imprints, the theory often involves intense emotional energy, especially from traumatic events like a suicide. It's thought that this energy can somehow be absorbed or imprinted onto the very fabric of a location, acting almost like an echo or a psychic recording.
Residual energy.
Exactly, residual energy. These aren't necessarily ghosts in the traditional sense of an intelligent spirit, but leftover energies that can be perceived by particularly sensitive individuals. And children are often considered more sensitive, perhaps because their perceptual filters aren't as rigidly formed as adults. As for the ritual, its efficacy likely lies in a combination of factors. On one hand, the parent's absolute conviction in the act of doing something protective provides a powerful sense of control and safety that can psychologically empower the child, change the family's collective energy, and reduce fear, which might in itself lessen the phenomenon.
The power of belief.
The power of belief is definitely part of it. However, it's also possible within certain frameworks that the focused intention and symbolic actions of such a ritual can genuinely shift the energetic resonance of a space, making it less hospitable, less conducive to lingering negative energies or phenomena. So it's likely an interplay of both belief and perhaps some form of actual energetic reality.
Okay, so stepping back now.
Yeah.
What does this all mean when we bring these incredibly diverse, often terrifying, and really deeply personal accounts together? What are the deeper insights we can maybe extract from these experiences for you, the listener, who wants to understand this stuff quickly but also thoroughly?
Well, I think the first major point is recognizing the truly elusive nature of the paranormal. These accounts, as we've seen, consistently defy simple categorization. They often blend elements we might think of separately: doppelgangers, cryptids, hauntings, poltergeist activity, psychological impacts. They just don't fit neatly into our preconceived boxes. And that suggests the reality behind these phenomena is probably far more complex and multifaceted than any single theory can fully explain. It forces us to accept that these aren't just isolated spooky incidents maybe, but different facets of a greater interconnected unknown.
Yeah, they resist easy labels.
Exactly. Second, there's that consistent theme of the resonance of place and history. So many of these phenomena seem deeply tied to specific locations, places with known, or at least suspected, histories of trauma, tragedy, or just unusual events like houses with tragic pasts, cemeteries, old isolated properties near historical sites. This strongly implies that space itself can indeed hold a kind of memory or an energetic imprint. It can act almost as a stage or maybe even a channel for these events, influencing the present experiences of people within them. It suggests our physical environments aren't always neutral backdrops.
The place itself matters.
Deeply matters, it seems. Third, these stories powerfully highlight the role of human perception and sensitivity. It's clear how an individual's psychological state, things like extreme stress, trauma, even just heightened sensitivity or empathy, perhaps psychic abilities can act as a kind of conduit or maybe a magnifier for these experiences. We saw how the programmer's stress might have opened a door, how the child's vulnerability in the Grim Reaper case could have made them a target. And this often leads to profoundly personal and even physical impacts, chronic nightmares, anxiety, or like in the Plunkus account, the mysterious disappearance of physical ailments once the connection to the location is broken. Our internal state seems just as important as any external phenomenon.
Our own readiness or openness plays a part.
It certainly appears that way. Fourth, despite how terrifying these encounters often are, there's almost always a universal quest for understanding. Witnesses consistently try to make sense of what happened to them. They do research, they look for external validation from others who've had similar experiences, or they turn to faith and protective rituals, like the family with the Grim Reaper figure. This really underscores a fundamental human need to explain the inexplicable, doesn't it? To try and categorize the chaos, find meaning, impose order, even on the most bewildering and frightening of circumstances. We seem wired to try and understand our world, even the parts that defy understanding.
We need answers, even if there aren't easy ones.
Precisely. And finally, perhaps most importantly, these stories collectively leave us with far more questions than answers. They fundamentally challenge our conventional understanding of reality, of cause and effect, maybe even of consciousness itself. They invite us, maybe even compel us, to consider possibilities that lie far beyond the scope of our everyday material world. They force us to ask, what else is truly out there? What are we missing?
It really does make you consider the possibilities, doesn't it? If these aren't just, glitches in the system or isolated weirdness, but maybe actual glimpses into a reality that's far more layered, far more mysterious than we often dare to imagine. What stands out most to you, the listener, from these deep dives into the unknown we've discussed today?
Well, thank you for joining us on this fascinating and sometimes quite chilling deep dive into the unexplained.
Yes, thank you. And we really encourage your continued curiosity, but also critical thinking. Remember, there's always more to learn, and considering multiple perspectives truly enriches our understanding, especially when we're facing the deep unknown. And perhaps the most unsettling thought to leave you with isn't just the fear these accounts evoke, but maybe the profound realization that despite all our science, despite all our advancements, there are still corners of our world and maybe even corners of ourselves that remain utterly, fundamentally mysterious, inviting us always to keep exploring just beyond the veil of everyday reality,